And the ones that we've been able to give books to, they're so excited. Like you can see faked excited, like, oh, thank you, appreciate it, a book, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if I told you this too, like the coaches that I'm working with, even talking with them, a lot of them I knew, I played with, and, they've gone on and their passion was coaching. Those guys didn't read either. But when it was funny. I was like, these guys, I'm going to bring up Books4Guys and they're going to laugh, But when I brought it up to them, they were like, dude, this is great. Like I have a stack of books I'm reading right now. Like this, I'm like, you read? This is great. But the coaches are like, dude, I think the kids will love this. Like we've never been in a time where it's easier to get the information that you want to dive into something that you're interested in than right now. And I think we're seeing that college, high school, you're having to get a little more creative and unique with personal development. There's not a one size fits all. Like colleges, I think, are starting to realize that curriculum, like kids don't have to go to college if they want to make a lot of money. That lesson's out there now. So if you want to go do something, you can go read a bunch of books or go get hands-on experience and do just fine without going that route. So it's been really cool. And again, like the crypto book, I'm like, dude, this is great. Like you're headed down the path. Your interest and intrigue, like your brain is spinning.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, MaryLou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Welcome to the Play Your Position podcast, and Happy New Year. I'm your host, MaryLou Kaiser, author of It's Not You, It's the Algorithm, How to Slow Your Scroll and Start Paying Attention to Your Life Again. If you're heading into the new year thinking, I want my attention back, this book is for you. It's a must-read for anyone who feels fed up with nonstop digital distractions. It's great for parents who are concerned about phone and device addiction in their kids, and let's be honest, in themselves too. And it's for industry leaders asking smart questions about AI and what it could mean for their business and culture. If you want to start the year with a little more clarity and a lot less noise, the link for the book is in the show notes below. All right, on to today's episode. This is one of those conversations that leaves you feeling a little more optimistic about humans, which is why I wanted to feature this conversation to kick off the 12th year of the Play Your Position podcast, because my guest, Chris Clinard, is building something that sounds simple on the surface until you realize what it actually does. Chris runs Books4Guys, and the mission is exactly what it sounds like. Get books into the hands of guys, especially young guys who might not think reading is for them. Not as homework or as punishment, not as an assigned classic that has nothing to do with their life, but as a choice and a doorway and as a personal advantage. And here's the part I love. Chris did not grow up as the reading guy. He was an athlete, a college football quarterback, a guy who didn't love reading in high school until he found books that actually spoke his language. Books that had sports stories and leadership stories, books that made him think, wait, this applies to me. So in this conversation, we get into what happens when reading becomes relevant, especially for young men navigating a world that feels loud, heavy, and algorithmically chaotic. Chris shares how Books4Guys is partnering with high schools to create Player of the Week awards where the kid gets to pick the book. And Chris literally sends it to them. We talk about what students are choosing. Some of it is exactly what you would expect, and some of it absolutely is not. We talk leadership, identity, tough lessons, and why books still matter even when the world is trying to turn everyone into a distracted goldfish. If you're a parent, a coach, a mentor, a teacher, or honestly, just a human who still believes attention is sacred, this episode is for you. So team, are you ready for kickoff? Because I sure am. Let's go. All right, so Chris, you and I recently met in air quotes, virtually through a mutual connection, Ben Singletary of the legendary Community. And one of the things that struck me right away about you is how passionate you are about books, even though you disclosed in our conversation that you did not like reading in high school. So here you are, you're running this organization, Books4Guys. Let's start there. What is it about books that you love now? Compare the Chris of, say, junior year in high school to the Chris you are today.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, because I'm the literal example of like a jock in high school or a sports guy that just you kind of get labeled as someone who just doesn't read and you don't have interest in it. And I didn't. I appreciated school. I loved my teachers. I loved learning, but kind of getting told what to read in high school and college. And we've all probably read the same books, no matter where you were at in what state or whatever. Everyone has like the same curriculum of old novels or I don't know. I don't even remember what we read. I was that disinterested. But actually, and I love the name of your podcast because I played football in college.
Mm-hmm.
And actually I transferred to a school where I knew nobody. And so I was redshirting. I couldn't play. All I could do was practice. I didn't know anybody. And somehow I ended up with some biographies of athletes that I'd followed. I think the first one I read was Michael Orr's The Blind Side. The movie had come out around the time I was in school, and I was like, hey, I'm going to read the book.
Yeah.
So I read the book. It was extremely interesting because I love sports. I love the story. And I was like, oh, this is great. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to go get another book. My grandma had given me a book about Tony Dungy, the former Colts and Buccaneers coach.
Sure.
She gave me that book, and I think she gave it to me in high school. It sat, in my room. I never read it. But then I read his book, and I was like, oh, man, there's some leadership qualities here, some personal development, some things I can take from it. And so I just started reading more, really because I was on my own, but I was picking up books that I was interested in. And but I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, I wish I'd have read these books, 3, 4, 5 years ago. There's so many lessons, and I'm enjoying this. This is something I'm actually liking. I'm sitting in a chair. I've got a lamp light on. Like, this is very comfortable, and I'm learning a lot. And then I'm talking to my friends about it. Like, hey, man, you should read this book. It was awesome, And so that's when it started really coming full circle. It started, I was reading books I liked, sports books, but then it led to leadership books, and then it led to finance books, and then it led to just different type of books. And then as I got into business and started meeting with other leaders, we would talk about sports and books. And someone had joked to me, I think I was telling you a story when we first met. They were like, hey, the ladies have all these book clubs and wine and book clubs and get-togethers. And he's like, there's not really a place for the guys to go and talk about books or get recommendations, like that. And he was like, you should make something. And I was like, well, I guess I will. So that's where Books4Guys was born out of. And obviously we'll talk more of kind of the direction it's going in, but it really just started as an organic process of picking up a book I was interested in. It led to more. And now I'm encouraging other guys and men to do the same thing.
I love that story about the guy sitting around. Of course, you're talking about the game, your favorite teams. That's pretty much par for the course. But then somebody had enough insight to notice that there really isn't culturally a model for men to sit around and talk about books. Now, are there book groups that are co-ed? Yes, there are. But it's definitely, social media has definitely amplified the women's book groups with wine. And I was in a book group for many, many years until COVID hit. And then COVID took us out, and our leader decided she didn't want to continue it virtually because the beauty of an in-person is the in-person. And we were an unusual book group because we actually read the book and talked about it. A lot of groups don't. A lot of them, it's just like an excuse to go out and party with the girls. But I think that's great that you listened, you said, hey, and then you did something about it. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of Books4Guys. When did you found it? What is it about? And what would you want listeners to understand about this organization where, from a standpoint of what it is and where you want it to go?
Yeah. So I started it going on 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And as I started putting it together, I had a vision for it to be impactful. I didn't necessarily know what that meant at the time. I knew I needed to figure out how to build a website. Never done that before. Needed to figure out how to start creating a newsletter, how to create a business account on LinkedIn, because I wanted it to be separate. I wanted it to be its own thing. So I spent a few months really putting that together, found a person to help me build the website, teach me how to use it. So now I do it all for the most part, and it's something, it was a skill I had to learn and kind of force myself to do it. So for a couple years, all I really did was post different books, whether it was a book that I read, whether it was a book somebody was recommending. And so the sole purpose was just like, hey, I'm just going to put book recommendations out there. I'm going to add them to the website. I don't know what everyone loves to read. So I'll just kind of, I'll look at lists and just start putting them on there for people to come visit and have a place to go find something. But then earlier this year, I'm a part of some leadership groups and some entrepreneurship groups. And finally, I was like, okay, guys, I have this platform. I know it can be impactful. What can we do here? And kind of going back to the original story, started peeling back the layers of myself and okay, when did it click for me that I enjoyed reading? I was like, okay, it's when I got a book that I actually wanted to read. And then it took off like a rocket and I got to learn a lot of different things. And so then that's when it clicked. I was like, okay, how can we get books into the hands of young guys at an earlier age that they're actually interested in reading to start that personal development journey and that curiosity and that interest to continue learning and bettering themselves or, to figure out what they like. And that's when it really grew and took off to where we built the Books4Guys community where people can join, help contribute to us being able to purchase and give these books away. We partnered with some high schools this fall where we did Books4Guys Player of the Week awards. So the coaches got to pick a player who performed well. That kid got to pick a book. We sent it to them. Extremely fascinating what these kids are interested in. I mean,
give us some examples. Like what are you seeing?
So obviously, a lot of kids pick sports books. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. We had one kid pick Lou Holtz. I'm like, do you even know who Lou Holtz is?
I know. Lou Holtz. Wow.
But we had a kid pick a crypto book. And I was like, you know what?
Okay.
It makes a ton of sense, and that kid maybe wouldn't go buy that book himself, but we were able to give it to him. And I'm sure he's going to learn. He's gonna know more about crypto than I do, So he's setting himself up. But so we were able to really start partnering and kind of funneling that path of being able to get books to kids and trying to work with some Big Brother programs now, trying to get universities and some athletic groups involved. So having some really cool conversations. But we also wanted to kind of benefit authors in this way too. Obviously, we're trying to get books away. And I was like, okay, how can I get authors more involved too? How can I spotlight them and support them in hopes that they may want to kind of join this movement too? Let's play both sides here. So started reaching out to authors and that's where the podcast was born. It was, hey, would love to have you on the podcast, tell your story. And it's not just authors. We have business leaders, athletes, people who know reading is important. And we do that because I want young guys specifically to see how important, they're trying to get to a certain level. And if they can see someone who's already there talk about books that had an impact to them, that's great. But the author side, having them on, spotlight their books on the website, put their story out there on the podcast, don't ask for anything from them. So a lot of the authors and publishing companies have been like, this is awesome. Great. Thank you. Refreshing. You're not just asking for money from us. I always ask, hey, if you feel led, please join the community. It helps us a lot, but it's not a requirement. But it allows us to, if a kid picks one of their books, we'll go purchase that book from the author. And that way it supports them, and then it helps, the student as well. So we're kind of trying to build this thing out to where it's not one-sided. Everybody gets support. And so it's a big, there's my brain spins every day on how
I
I can
bet
make this
it
better
does.
and help as many people as possible. And so just, starting the podcast back in July, I think we're going to have 40 episodes done already.
It's
I think
awesome.
we've got 15 or 20 already in the queue.
Yep.
So it's awesome. I love the energy people are bringing and the
Ah,
excitement for it.
I mean, I just looking at your face, you have this big smile. You have so much energy is emanating from you, and it's here we are at the end of 2025, and this has been an interesting year. I can't speak for anybody listening. I can't speak for you, Chris, but certainly in light of some recent events this particular week, the world just feels heavy, and so many people are wanting positive energy, wanting something to grab onto. And if it can come through a book, if it can come through a conversation on a podcast, all the better. And so these young men are in high school, I presume freshman through senior. So there's not an age. It's just if you're still in high school, they're part of you who you want to reach.
Yeah.
Why? I'm going to go into maybe a little dangerous territory here, but looking at the educational system, why do you think, outside of being forced to read an old book, and I'm a former English teacher, so I know what that was like, and I had students like you who were athletic and didn't really gravitate towards the humanities as much as they might have to business classes, for example, or they just wanted to be out practicing whatever they played. And yet I did witness what's possible when you make something relevant to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hearing from you. When the light switch went on, you read a book and thought, wow, this applies to my life. This makes sense for me. What kind of feedback are you getting from the actual young men who are receiving a book or books?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that are on their minds right now?
Yeah. Great question. And the ones that we've been able to get books to, they're so excited. Like you can see faked excited, like, oh, thank you, appreciate it, a book, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if I told you this too, like the coaches that I'm working with, even talking with them, a lot of them I knew, I played with, and, they've gone on and their passion was coaching. Those guys didn't read either. But when it was funny. I was like, these guys, I'm going to bring up Books4Guys and they're going to laugh, But when I brought it up to them, they were like, dude, this is great. Like I have a stack of books I'm reading right now. Like this, I'm like, you read? This is great. But the coaches are like, dude, I think the kids will love this. Like we've never been in a time where it's easier to get the information that you want to dive into something that you're interested in than right now. And I think we're seeing that college, high school, you're having to get a little more creative and unique with personal development. There's not a one size fits all. Like colleges, I think, are starting to realize that curriculum, like kids don't have to go to college if they want to make a lot of money. That lesson's out there now. So if you want to go do something, you can go read a bunch of books or go get hands-on experience and do just fine without going that route. And so it's been really cool. And again, like the crypto book, I'm like, dude, this is great. Like you're headed down the path, your interest and intrigue, like your brain is spinning.
Yeah.
And I haven't had too many in-depth conversations with these kids, but it's been, from what I can tell, genuine excitement that they get to choose what they want to read. A quarterback, he picked Aaron Rodgers' book, because that's a quarterback. Another picked the Tom Brady versus Manning book, which I actually had that author on the podcast. So it was really cool that his book got selected. But that kid, was interested in Brady and Manning. And so just seeing the genuine interest and knowing, even if they don't sit down and read word for word, they're at least going to look through it and maybe something catches their attention where they'll read it. If they can take just one nugget, that they can apply to their life and their journey, that's really the purpose here. I don't need them to write a report to say like, hey, I
There's
read
no
your
test
book.
at the end of
Yeah, I
this.
don't need proof. But and like me, maybe they read it in 2 years, but they got a book from someone. They'll remember where they got it from. Hopefully they'll take something from it and they can start that journey earlier than a lot of us do, when we come around to knowing the importance of reading.
Yeah. Yeah. That personalization piece is so, so important with everything, because when it's especially if you've been awarded it, for, recognized, like the coach says, hey, this kid has been doing great this week and is the player of the week. I mean, there's just something that does mark your memory bank, and you don't know where it's going to lead. And I love that you said, even if it's just one thing, like one nugget from the entire book, or in the case of us doing podcasting, I feel that same way. If somebody listens to our conversation and takes one thing that makes a difference in their life or someone else's life, because they said, oh, so-and-so needs to listen to this guy because of what he's doing, that's how we are all paying it forward. And
That's right.
I just, again, in a world that feels heavy, and we're in such transition right now because of technology accelerating with the AI coming in, and a lot of young people turning away from social media. I'm seeing more and more, ironically, on social media, I'm seeing more and more posts of people saying, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. I don't want a digital presence. My personal brand can be offline. I mean, there's just all these things that are happening. And these young players, these young men are going to be the leaders of our future. And so to model that reading does matter. And if you can direct your library and learn from another person's experience, whether it is an old book like Marcus Aurelius, for example, who lived, thousands of years ago, or my book, which just came out 2 months ago, right? Like, we're all on this human journey together. And what do you think about the statistics that are coming out? Are you familiar with Scott Galloway's latest book, Notes on Being a Man?
Yeah.
And how
Actually, I haven't read it yet, but
I
it's
haven't
actually
either.
on the website.
Yeah. So when you're engaging with coaches and having conversations with other men who are leading in business or entrepreneurship, what are some of, let's do both sides. What are some of the concerns that they're noticing in young men today? And what are some of the things that they're like, wow, this really is surprising in a great way?
Yeah, those are great questions. And you said a lot of things there that I was getting my brain spinning. Yeah, and I have a professional job too. So I'm around leaders. I'm around hiring. I'm around, I'm getting in the age where I'm kind of between maybe some older leaders and then like the young group. And I'm trying to find my place between that balance. But I don't want to call this next generation soft, because they're not. They're very smart. They know what they want. They look at things differently, a lot of times in a good way, but you have to approach them differently than what I was approached.
And me too.
Yeah, I really actually appreciated some tough love a lot. For me personally, I handled it well. I wasn't one to quit from it. I got angry and then I'd fix it and gravitate and grow. Now you see like the transfer portal in colleges, and it goes to high schools too. Like if you don't like something, you leave, you can move on, you can quit a lot. So hearing coaches talk about it's a slippery slope. It's very, it's not something I've dug too deep in. I kind of see it from the outside a lot, but trying to communicate and understand what these kids are going through as well from a social media standpoint. Like we didn't really have to experience that. So the pressures that come with everyone knowing you or seeing you or everything you say getting out there, and we all, even talking face to face, we can take things a certain way that you didn't intend to, put out there. And then social media typing, that stuff gets convoluted and confused all the time. So It's just trying to dig in and find out like where the motivation is. What does this young person want to accomplish? How do they want to do it? And then can we mesh what we're doing with that approach so we can all work together? So I don't know if that answers your question. It's just it's a very unique time because there's all this stuff that's being meshed together. Technology. I mean, even me, I didn't have all this growing up. I kind of saw it become, but I wasn't in junior high and middle school, and TikTok wasn't there, and Instagram wasn't. And Facebook for these kids are like, we don't use Facebook, it's so it's just, there's the struggle. It's just like, how do we all blend all this together and be able to continue growing a company or growing a business? And just getting that buy-in as a team, everyone, there's a lot of individualism that's been created. A lot of it in a good way. You can build your own brand, you can do all these cool things, but there's still a lot of things we got to do together to get to a certain point. So I just think if you have someone as a leader and they can get a team rallied together, even for just a year, that's pretty impressive now.
Yeah, definitely.
Much less looking at 5 years down the road.
All right, it is halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by It's Not You, It's the Algorithm. If you've been feeling like life's on autopilot, checking boxes, chasing alerts, wondering where the day went, this book is your mirror and your map. It's not about quitting tech, it's about reclaiming yourself from it. Short chapters, sharp insights, and a lot of truth designed for busy brains who want to think again. Grab your copy through the link in the show notes and start paying attention to your life again. I think you just nailed it. There are so many variables all converging at once. There's the generations that are all still in the workforce. There are enormous gaps between the comfort level of using technology, what it means. There's a lot of bias around different generations because if you didn't grow up with a phone in your pocket the way now Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that's what they've known.
Yeah.
And they're looking around going, yeah, so. And then, older generations are kind of going, yeah, but, and what we really need to do is have more conversations like this where we can say, okay, let's just all acknowledge that we're all coming at this from a different place, but we all want to go pretty much in the same direction. So how are we going to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, and then to your point, to kind of add to it, you're talking about like the good thing too.
Yeah.
All of these young folks, they have this kindness to them. I think they're fed up with a lot of the hate and the bad stuff we see in the world too. And they have a different approach of like, hey man, like, why is this a deal? Let's be happy, And so that's another great thing about books. And that's kind of another thing I talk about a lot of is just even me personally. I remember challenging myself to read about different people that maybe if you'd have just asked me my opinion on them and what I've seen on the news, it maybe would have been one thing. But after I read their story, or maybe I listened to them on a Joe Rogan podcast where they had 3 hours to speak, all of a sudden I was like, man, we're all so much more alike than we think we are.
Yeah.
We really are. We get torn apart from what we see on social media and the news. But when you sit down and talk to someone or read about someone or understand the way somebody thinks, you still may not think that's the best way, from your own opinion, but you understand why they think the way they do. And you go, that makes sense. Makes more sense than what I thought. So it's another great thing about books and podcasts is being able to have those conversations, learn about people, and just your mind expands. It's open more to different ideas. You start to see different perspectives. And they're really good about that, I think, as a whole, of being more open to what someone else thinks and believes and being curious about why. So I think that's something I've noticed a lot more with the younger individuals, which is really a positive thing. Like you said, from what we're seeing now, hope they can make some change for the better. For us.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just at this interesting confluence of different time periods, different worldviews, and I heard somebody talk about optimism not that long ago, and they were criticizing optimists, not because of being like a Pollyanna-ish, that whole like everything is always great, because everything isn't. It more, if I'm going to choose the half full or half empty, I'm going to choose the half full. That's just my nature. Like that's how I came into the world. But I can see, speaking of seeing another point of view, I can see how some people wouldn't see the world that way based on their life experiences. And because of how visible being online is, I've said this, I would probably not have survived adolescence if I had grown up with YouTube and Snapchat and all these things, because, we won't go there, but
it's a pressure that we luckily didn't have to face. We felt like
faced pressure, but it wasn't publicly.
Exactly.
It wasn't on a video.
Exactly. We thought we had pressure. What they're dealing with is a different kind of pressure that we just don't understand.
Right. And I think, again, part of your mission is aligned with that idea that, like, hey, listen, if you can just take some time to pull back from the craziness of life and the feeling like you always have to be on and posting, or at least consuming, like who's doing what and, all that kind of stuff, and dive into someone's story, really get their perspective, how they grew up, for example. Like, I think one of the most compelling memoirs I read in the last couple of years was Will Smith's memoir. And this was, that came out pre the slap. Okay. So, but you read that and there was so much about him that I didn't know that helped me. And I always liked him. I mean, I loved him in Men in Black. I loved him in Fresh Prince. Right. And I even liked some of his songs, but it's easy to think that a person like him, or say Michael Jordan, or Lady Gaga, or Madonna, or any of, even Michelle Obama, any of these people who've been public figures through the path they chose or was chosen for them, somehow have escaped the agony and suffering that an everyday person, we humans suffer. You lose a family member, or you move 20 times in 3 years, or you get bullied at school, or you don't make the team, or you don't get into the school you wanted to go to, right? There's so many things that kind of knock us down. And when you can see... I was
going to say, I read Michelle Obama's book and Condoleezza Rice, and learning about them. And I have this conversation with a lot of people. We see these people who are just amazing, and they're on this stage and they're successful and they've accomplished all this stuff. And I'm like, man, you should read their book, because they didn't just wake up and then they went there. There's a whole middle section there that they had of a lot of different struggle and a lot of things they went through, just like everybody else, to be where they're at today. So it can get lost pretty quickly, again, social media, or just to see someone's life being a success now. But like I said, they just didn't wake up and be there. There was a lot of hardship and hard work in there that put them where they're at.
It's true. I mean, that highlight reel kind of life that we live in, where we're bombarded with either that, the winning, the ticker tape parade, the champagne flowing, I'm winning another award ceremony, or we see the absolute devastation that hits when there's a natural disaster, for example, or a plane crashes, or somebody who has mental health issues decides the only way they know how to communicate is to open fire on innocent people. I mean, that kind of trying to make sense of that, let alone just live your life, that's the kind of world that young people are growing up in. I didn't grow up in a time where we had to have drills if there was a mass shooter that came into the building. That was not part of I was teaching high school when Columbine hit, and it was devastating to the students. And it wasn't even our school, because nothing like that had ever happened before. And suddenly there was this new variable that in the world that we had to start questioning. And it did make people start to look at each other differently. Like, is this guy going to go off? Or
Yeah.
And so again, going back to what you're doing with Books4Guys, and then I have a slightly different question I want to ask you. I guess I want to just affirm once again what you're doing, Chris, it's cool, but it's also noble because one, young men are seeing that older men in their lives are reading and that's a modeling piece. Maybe in their family, they're not seeing that, right? So if they see their coaches doing it or someone like yourself, and also just again, introducing them to the power they have to choose. That reading isn't just something that's forced on you. You always can choose. And that when you flip that switch and realize you're the architect of your life, you never lose that, ever.
Yeah. 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 I love that. You're the architect of your life.
You
I love
are.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question is, when did you recognize in yourself that you are a leader? When did you have, like, I always call it the call to leadership? Did you answer a call at some point that you remember very specifically? Or was it something that evolved more gradually? When did you realize I'm a leader?
Yeah. Great question. And definitely, I don't put myself on a pedestal of being a leader. I think maybe why I'm good at this sometimes is because I take that approach of like, hey, I'm whatever you like, what's your opinion? I'm here to listen to you. And I got molded by a lot of great leaders. I tell people I'm so blessed. The coaches I've had, the people I've worked with who have taught me some incredible lessons. I've taken bits and pieces from the best of the best. And that's where, kind of where I'm at now. I'm sure I'll take plenty of more as I continue to grow and do things. But no, probably at a young age. And it was with sports. And maybe it's kind of a natural thing. And I don't know if it's because I was good at leading or maybe because I was a quarterback. So, that kind of you naturally talk the most. You're in control of the most. You have to make sure everybody's on the same page. You talk to the coach more than anyone else. You relay the message to the players, back and forth. And so I don't know if it was organically built. I give a lot of credit to my parents too. My mom's always been a go-getter and a kind of a drill setter. My dad's always been, as a pastor, leading people. So I got to see how he did it with such a gracious and kind way in difficult situations, being fair to everyone and balancing out different perspectives. And so I think a lot of that just kind of came through me. And then as junior high school, as an athlete, at a bigger school, just being able to be friends with a lot of different people. But because I listened and tried to get along, obviously like everyone else, I wanted to be liked. So, wanted to give everyone the proper attention needed and give to others instead of take. And then as I kind of got older, I kind of learned that is what a good leader does. They give more than they take. And I love giving and being a blessing to others. That's like my whole goal is like, I want to make a lot of money and be blessed so I can like give so much away and be a blessing to others. Like I've always had that thought is like, how can I have an impact on others? Like, what do you need? I would love to just give it to you. Like, what can I do to help you get there? And so I don't know when it came, but I can see the progression as a young man with the way my parents were, sports, having great coaches, the position I was in, thankfully them teaching me how to be a good leader, me kind of taking the lessons and learning from them, having discipline. My parents didn't let me quit anything. My coaches didn't let me quit anything. So I'm sure there were moments where I wasn't a great leader by all means. Even today, I'm sure there are people that would say that, but for the most part, I think I've become a good leader by just kind of meshing and listening a lot more to like how I can help, how can I be there for others. And it feels good when you're told like, hey, I really appreciate the approach you take. I really appreciate all the help you give me. I really appreciate you taking ownership and like making my job easier. And that stuff is what fuels me the most. And so maybe that's just how, if that answers the question, I think that's been the progression. And hopefully again, I'll continue to learn and become better and better at it.
Yeah, no, you did. That's a wonderful answer. What's one of the toughest lessons, leadership lessons you've learned from any point in your life? Whether
so I have one for sure that stands out more than others, and it's when I actually got to run my own office. I'm in recruiting, and I got to build out my own team, and I'm leading the office, hiring and everything else. I did have some specific leaders who are a little bit more old school in the approach of like a drill down. What are you doing? Which isn't me. I'm definitely more like, hey, how can I help? Talk people up. And I remember some moments where I let their way of leading blend into mine. And I thought that's how I had to be a good leader. And I'll never forget talking to my friends who I had hired and people in a certain way. And then me at the end of the day driving home, just being like, what the heck are you doing? Like,
who was that?
That's not why they wanted to come work with you. That's not why they enjoy coming to the office and being with you. Like, they love you, man. Like, what you're doing and how you are is the reason they're there. So if I've got to put up a shield to block that from them, that's my job as a leader in that moment. And so, but I'll never forget that lesson specifically. It was, hey, stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
Do what you know is the right way to go about this and leading others. And so that lesson right there sits with me every time when I'm helping other people. I'm like, hey, don't take that approach. That's not you. Be who you are. Be helpful. And that's always the one that gets, appreciated the most anyway. So, but that was the leadership lesson I'll never forget.
That is such a good lesson. And I'm certainly resonating with when I changed myself to whatever. And I wonder if that is just a natural part of when you're younger and you're learning. I mean, we learn best when we make mistakes. That's when the lessons really land. It's one thing to talk about all the wonderful qualities that we've developed, but those qualities can only come from the fumbles, right? The interceptions of our lives, and even a losing season, which it comes back to the whole sports thing that I think that's one of the reasons why sports are so valuable, because when you playing sports and also being a fan, or if you're a parent or a sibling of somebody who's playing a sport, and all the way down to the little guys and all the way up to, what is it? Phillip Rivers coming back just the other day. I mean,
amazing story.
It's crazy, right? Like, and I think that speaks to also the kind of world we live in, where the boundaries that used to be so defined about once you've retired, that's it, right? From anything. And now people are going, hey, listen, I think I'm going to come back and I'm 45 or whatever he is. Or I saw a really cool story on College Game Day a couple weeks back about this man who's 58 years old and walked on. He'd never gone to college. Did you see that story?
Still had his eligibility.
And he walked on, and the coach was like, all right, sure. And he was practicing with the kids, and they were all like letting him, be who he was. And he'd overcome so many obstacles. I was crying. It was so moving. It was such a beautiful...
The College Game Day stories
every week. I love College Game Day.
I'm in tears every Saturday morning.
I know. They get you every time. And, I love the energy. And again, some people aren't big sports fans, and that's okay. My point really is this idea of like, that's where you can learn some truths about being human, that it doesn't always work out. You don't always win. Your team or your favorite player gets traded.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there.
And that's okay. That's life. That's again, one of those lessons that you learn. You can't predict everything. You don't really have control over a whole lot. But it's learning how to weather those storms and stay even keel and the ups and the downs. There's going to be so many of them. So not getting too high, getting too low, and just learning how to get through that. That's a great, and everyone's always constantly working on that, because there's different phases of life bring different punches. Mm-hmm. And so having to learn how to take that. And I love that you brought that up, though, because that's a great lesson. And again, I read about that stuff. So hopefully when those punches come, I'll be able to overcome them.
You hope.
Yeah. So
sometimes when you're in it, you're like, it brings to light, this too shall pass. I mean, sometimes there's seasons of life that aren't easy. But going back to books, why don't you share 2 or 3 of your favorite books, Chris, ones that have made a big difference to you?
Yeah. So one, I'll say it, and actually I got to have this author on the Books4Guys podcast recently, was very cool. But there's a book called QBQ, Question Behind the Question.
Okay.
It's a personal accountability book. So it's awesome. I had a leader present it to our team probably 8 years ago, and it made such an impact on me. I've shared it with CEOs that I've worked with, leadership I've worked with. It's a short read. I usually read it every January. Honestly, it's just kind of a reset for me to be a servant to others, take accountability for things, and it just makes life a lot easier to navigate when you use the word I. How can I be better? How can I help others? How can I make the situation better? And if everybody collectively takes that approach, it makes teams and everything really smooth. So that's one I recommend a lot. A sports one that I love. So if someone's like, they don't read a lot, but you want something that you're going to be interested in and maybe to lead to others. But the Tiger Woods book that came out, I think it was in 2021. It's one of the few books that I started and I just could not stop. And the reason I liked it is it really gave me an understanding of why Tiger Woods is the way he is, or why he was when all of the drama and the heartache and the stuff came crashing down on his life and his career. And it goes back to, like you said, how he grew up, you know, with his dad and just the way he was wired. And it also explained that's the reason why he was so good at golf and why he was so dominant over everyone else. But it gave me an interesting insight to his life while also being a sports fan, you know, and reliving these moments. But it taught me why it was a good thing for him and also why it led to the problems that he had. So it's a very interesting book, especially if you like golf. That's obviously, but just learning how people think again, that was one that I really, really enjoyed. And so those are the two I recommend the most, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, those are probably the two I recommend the most.
Do you know if there was a documentary made based on that particular book?
On Tiger Woods?
Yeah.
I think there was an HBO or
HBO or Netflix, because I think I saw it.
Yeah. And I forget who the author is, but it's Tiger Woods' face on the book. And
and it's like mostly white, but it's just his face. But yeah, I remember I haven't read that book. I wrote it down. The documentary that really dives into the way his father was with him and the role modeling that he got. And that's, to me, that tension between his greatness, but the dark side of the greatness is we never get tired of those.
Great. Outside of golf, not so great.
No, but his father modeled that not so great. I mean, he didn't really, I think the scene that was most pivotal for me in that documentary was when he was in high school and there was a girl that he loved and his father said, she's going to get in the way. And Tiger had to write her a letter and say, and it was you want to talk about putting on a mask and not being true to who he really was. It was, this is it, goodbye. There was no explanation. Oh my, it was so heartbreaking. Yeah. But that was a fork in the road. You know, we've all had them. The longer we live, the more of those forks we can look back and say, yeah, I took that way. What would have happened if I'd gone that way? But we don't know. You can only live with what you've done. So, well, Chris, this has been wonderful as we bring this in for a landing. For people that would like to learn more about Books4Guys and you in general, where do you hang out online?
Yeah. So the easiest way to find everything is just books4guys.com. And it's books, the number 4 guys.com. It's got links to the podcast. Our YouTube channel's up and rolling now. It's got information to become a community member. So like we said earlier, that's how we're able to actually purchase and give the books away. So it means a lot for those that do join. What's also cool about that is community members have a say in where we give books to. So if you become a community member and you have a teacher or coach that meant a lot to you and you think their kids would enjoy this opportunity to get books, those are the ones that can send us in and say like, hey, I've got somebody, get us introduced. We'll go get them. So, and we also give away free books to our community members. So every month we try to give away 3 to 5. As more community members join, we'll give away even more. But it's just a small token to say thank you. And it's a lot of fun to send an email out and just say like, hey, pick a book, we're sending it to you. So it brings a lot of joy. But we also have a free newsletter. So if you want to keep up with us that way too, that's totally fine. But yeah, Books4Guys, you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube now. We do all the video podcast up and everything. So, but you can find all that through just books4guys.com. You can navigate everything from there.
All right, team, you know that the link for Chris's website, Books4Guys, will be on his show notes page right under the episode. You're listening on your phone, most likely. Just click it and it'll go there. And you'll find all of the amazing energy and mission and vision that he's building. And I'm excited to be a part of it. I am joining the community this week. I'm honored that my book has been chosen to be featured for a little while. And I'm just really excited about the new year and in my own small way, helping to spread the word because I believe in this. Again, books are so near and dear to my heart. And when we think about the new year coming, why don't we end with you sharing something you didn't talk about today, Chris, but that could be a little impetus for people who are looking at what is 26 going to bring for me? What could you share?
Yeah. Well, if I'm just providing, optimism and hope, I think 2026 will bring a lot of great things for us. We've seen a lot of struggle, but I think there's more good in the world than bad. And I think we are more alike than we are not alike. And I think just continuing to try and bring the energy and the light and the collaboration of conversations like this to do more and more of that is going to lead to more exciting and positive things out there. So whether it's reading a book, listening to a podcast, I just encourage people to sit down and just have more conversations, get off the couch, get away from your screen and your phone and set a limit on your scrolling if you have to. It really does lead to being happier and enjoying life a lot more. And so that's just my word of encouragement that hopefully leads to a very prosperous year for everybody who's listening and watching this.
I love it. And thank you so much for your time today. This has been such a joy for me. And I know Team PYP is going to love this episode.
Thank you, MaryLou.
The Play Your Position podcast is produced by the fantastic Daniel Ramiros, a.k.a. Dr. Podcasts. Interested in your own algorithm reset? Visit MaryLouKaiser.com for the book, the toolkit, and ways to work with me. Until next time, remember, it's always a great day to get out there to play your position and live like you mean it.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.